If you think that big burning ball of gas in the sky contributes as much to climate change as you do, well, the CBC Ombudsman doesn't think you're very credible at all, and I have the email proof. Did you know that at least 2 CBC shows have made it their official position not to include balance when talking about climate change? A senior director for Equiterre, an environmentalist activist group, let it slip in an interview with a left-wing website, Corporate Knights. He said, 2 of Radio Canada's scientific shows announced that they would no longer present the 2 sides of the coin on climate change because they argue there are no 2 sides of the coin. That sounds almost too impossible and too brazen to believe, even for the CBC. So I thought I'd check it out for myself. I went to the website for Quirks and Quarks, a long-running CBC science radio show hosted by Bob McDonald. And good grief, look at this. An 8-minute segment about how to change a climate skeptic's mind. Look at this unbelievable description. To convince a person with conservative political views that climate change is real, change the way you deliver the message. Or you could just leave me and my politics alone. That works too. But this is the state broadcaster giving out tools to make sure that everybody toes the Liberal Party line with regard to climate change. And you paid for all of it because this scolding is coming right from the taxpayer-funded welfare case, the CBC. But this just isn't an isolated event. No, you've got to see this email that was forwarded to me by one of our viewers. Rob in St. Albert took the time to write to the CBC Ombudsman. He was watching CBC's The National one night. Journalist Nick Purdon had a piece about Lennox Island and about how climate change and rising sea levels are resulting in the island shrinking. Rob felt there were more reasons than just climate change. He felt that soil erosion was contributing to the problems on Lennox Island, namely the kind of soil that makes up the island and storm surges, and then Rob provided links to cite as evidence while asking the CBC to cite their own. Rob's email reads, "In my opinion, I think the Lennox Island piece aired on CBC was one-sided. I feel it misleads viewers that climate change is the reason for the island's concerns. And not everything is about climate change. I believe there is an agenda here. I'm of the opinion CBC is biased on several climate change stories that have aired." And then Rob goes on to write, "I would like to know and have confidence in the future that government employees of our nation's state broadcaster are sourcing as much information as possible and providing it to us viewers, the taxpayers. I'm of the opinion that CBC is focused on one narrative about climate change and pushing the Trudeau government narrative. I believe CBC has a duty to provide balance to us Canadians, and on this file, you are failing to do just that." You'll never believe the response Rob got back from the Ombudsman, a woman named Esther Enkin, or maybe you will believe it. This is her reply. "If you're asking for a response on the questions of erosion on Lennox Island, I will ask programmers to do so. It is specific and questions whether climate change may be only one of the reasons." Okay, fine, that's good, that's fair. But here's where it gets a little hinky, you guys. Enkin then says, "Please note, however, that as I have written for the past several years, I do not forward complaints asking for a response to one-sided presentations about climate change as such. The overwhelming scientific consensus is that climate change is reality. Governments at state, provincial, and national levels are developing strategy and policy based on that reality." Now, pay attention to the phrases she uses here. To ask journalists to provide alternative views for balance misunderstands the principle that CBC News and all credible news organizations are required to present a range of views depending on their relevance. To provide views that are not credible or not based in fact creates a false equivalence that is misleading. Wait a minute here. Rob didn't ask for alternative views. He asked CBC to cite their sources and provide the whole story, which they didn't. Enkin is not a scientist. She's a journalist manager. Worse yet, She doesn't even deny Rob's assertions that what CBC is doing is politically motivated on behalf of the Liberal Party of Canada. She just says that his concerns aren't relevant because the science is settled, according to her. But we know the science is absolutely not settled, and there is absolutely no consensus with regard to global warming. The often cited 97% of scientists agreeing with global warming statistic is based on 79 respondents to a study who had already self-reported themselves as climate scientists. These 77 scientists whose careers depend on global warming actually happening agreed that global temperatures had generally risen since the year 1800 and that human activity is a significant contributing factor. That's Esther Enkin's consensus to shut down debate. 77 self-identified climate scientists in the year 2009. And stifling debate about global warming actually goes against the CBC's own mandate. Here's their mandate. The mandate of the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation is to inform, enlighten, and entertain, to contribute to the development of a shared national consciousness and identity, to reflect the regional and cultural diversity of Canada, and to contribute to the development of Canadian talent and culture. Oh, really? How does CBC reflect the regional and cultural diversity in the country if they're shutting out opinions from broad swaths of our nation, including about half of Albertans? According to a Main Street poll, only 51% of us think the Earth's temperatures are rising due to human activity, and 40% of us see these changes as completely natural. 9% of us are unsure. It's even more diverse in Fort McMurray. Only 33% of these folks believe they are causing the Earth to warm. I guess, like the CBC told my friend Rob, we just aren't relevant enough. I emailed Esther, the Ombudsman, asking her what the company-wide mandate at the CBC is with regard to global warming, why she isn't being reflective of the CBC's mandate, and why she thinks Alberta opinions just aren't relevant in the discussion. If she replies to me, I'll let you know. It always feels like the CBC is parroting the Liberal Party lines. They've always been Canadian Pravda. But now we know the CBC has made the political and ideological decision to shut down ongoing scientific debate with regard to climate change. Science should have no ideology and should stand up to any and all scrutiny and debate. That's how it works. Instead, CBC, well, they're the flat earthers of our time, shutting out the skeptics and protecting the government political agenda instead. You saw Enkin say it herself in her email. Since the federal and provincial governments, you know, Justin Trudeau and Rachel Notley, say global warming is a threat, well then, the CBC says it is too. And that's the end of it. So shut up and pay your carbon tax already. For the Rebel.media, I'm Sheila Gunn-Reid. This weekend, I'm doing something the CBC would never do. I'm bringing you the truth about Justin Trudeau's attacks on the family farm. Go to savethefamilyfarm.ca for details.